Hey everybody, welcome back to the Social Distance Show on what always say I hope is the last episode, but it doesn't look like it's going to be the last episode for a long, long time. However, um, things are getting a lot busier over here, and the Social Distance Show, which was 7 days a week, for some unknown reason. Oh, yeah, because I thought that I was going to be bored and have nothing to do for quarantine. The social distance show is going to now be every Tuesday at 7. So it's going to be every Tuesday at 7 here on Westerly Live. You can watch it on Westerly Live on Facebook. You can watch it DeAngelis and Barber on YouTube. You can watch it on the Westerly Live app and Westerly.live. And of course, today you're watching it on Caswell Cooke shows. Caswell Cooke's Facebook channel, and of course in his Facebook group for his book, which is what we are talking about today. I know that you've seen a lot of me and Caswell, but we're talking about a specific subject today, and it's one that he feels really passionate about. And he was in the middle of a book tour when all of this happened, so we thought that it would be a good idea to talk about it a little bit here. Also, it's something that I sort of know a little bit more about than I did a month ago, which is interesting. So we're gonna bring him on now. Caswell Cooke. Hey, hey.
Here we are, the social
Yeah.
distance show. I like this show.
Thanks, man. It's only going to
Yeah.
one day a week.
That's all right.
Yeah.
One day a week is good.
Yeah.
You'll have to change the name when the COVID is over. You'll have to change the name.
Well, in 2022, I will do that. I don't know. For real though, like I don't know. I started this by every single day going, I hope this is the last episode, and now I'm like, this is gonna be a while probably. At least at the very least, social distancing is here for the long haul right now.
That's true.
So, it is what it is. I'll probably just go back to hosting a show that isn't called this at some point. Didn't
As
think
you
that this
should.
was going to last a long time, but it did lead to a lot of other stuff. Anyway, all good stuff. Speaking of, one of those good things is that I'm doing a lot of work now with the Episcopal Church.
Yes, you are.
Like a lot. Like I'm almost a full-time employee of the Episcopal Church. 7 days a week. Literally, actually, yeah, literally, I work for the Episcopal Church 7 days a week. Christchurch Westerly. And you saw some numbers that were bothering you for a long time in the National Episcopal Church, and you decided to do something about it. So why don't you give us a little overview of what your book is about?
Yeah, the book's called The Death and Resurrection of the Episcopal Church, but with the caveat, how to save a church in decline. And so it really started a few years ago when I was talking to a priest, and she said, "What are you worried about, Caswell?" I said, "Well, I'm worried that, the numbers keep going down in the church, locally, nationally, wherever. In the United States in general, churches are just declining. But the Episcopal Church, just like many mainline Protestant churches, it's a huge amount. It's half the membership in 50 years, and a quarter of the
That's
membership in
crazy.
the last 15. So I said, "What?" She said, "What are you worried about?" I said, "Well, it's that the church won't be here." She said, "Well, don't worry, it'll exist somehow." And that's what ticked me off. I said, "Well, I don't want to exist somehow." For all these years, especially in the 90s when things weren't so bad, but they were still always just this decline, people would say, "Well, we're pruning the tree," or now we're down to the stump and there's nothing left to prune. It's over. And so we're at a point now where the Anglican Church of Canada, the Anglican Church is the Church of England around the world, the Queen and the Archbishop of Canterbury, all that. Well, the Episcopal Church is the United States version of that. But the Church of Canada has extrapolated out that the last Anglican standing will be in 40 years. So they literally have a date for the death of the church in Canada, the Anglican
Okay.
Church in Canada. So I don't want to see the Episcopal Church get that way. So we've never been a large church, but we've been very influential. 12 of the presidents have been Episcopalian. We can claim the most senators and congressmen. There's so many people that you can name that are famous Episcopalians. We've definitely, the group of people is a very, a great group of people. But the peak number we had was 3.6 million back in 1966. That was like the pinnacle. And now we're down to like 1.6 million. So that's 2 million members in 50 years. And yet the population of the United States has gone up.
Yeah.
So they're dying off and not being replaced. The average age of an Episcopalian is 66. That's not sustainable. And so churches are falling apart. So I wrote this book to give some basic examples of how to just fix it, how to do things. Just start, no answer is going to come from on high to fix you. It's got to happen grassroots level from your own parish. And that's what we've started to do at Christ Church Westerly. And we've turned the decline around. We were declining just like the national church. The numbers just trending downward. You used to have 1,200 people as members. Then it was down to like 4 something. Now we're up to like 5 something. So we've reversed the decline. Our average Sunday attendance used to be 375. Then it was down to like 170. Now we're up to about 230. So we've reversed the decline, or maybe not gone back to our glory days, but so
you
it
started to reverse it. Yeah.
Started to reverse it in the last 4 to 5 years. Yeah.
And if anything, I mean, so religion is kind of like organized religion as far as numbers go, and in church numbers right now. I feel like you could kind of make a comparison to like TV ratings, right? Like they don't mean what they used to, because there's so many different ways for people to, like a lot of people that maybe at one point would have been Episcopalian, just consider themselves that, but don't go to church. And the same thing with all of these Protestant or Catholic religions. The trend in America right now is to not go to church, is to separate yourself from that. And it's definitely, it definitely has been a trend for a long time, and it's for sure a trend with a lot of young people. But it's not that they're not open to it, which is something that I've noticed a lot in talking to people over the years. What do you think? So, what do you think the reason is for the decline in this time? Do you think that it is just the time? Like I said, like you can't really compare. It's apples and oranges to the 60s. Like television ratings are. There's just different things that people do now. Or do you think that there's a specific reason for the decline?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for the decline. I mean, if you look at the last U.S. Census, as I said, there's about 1.6 million people that are active on the rolls of the church, but there's over 3 million people in the last census that said they're Episcopalian. So there's half again our number out there that's like, oh yeah, I'm Episcopalian. I know a lot of them. I meet them all the time. Yeah, I'm Episcopalian. Well, yes. When's the last time you went to church or were active? 20 years ago, but it doesn't matter. It's like Catholics are the same way. I'm Catholic. You are? Okay. So you're Catholic because you got baptized, confirmed, married, and then we see you again when you die. So yes, there's plenty of in-name people, but I'm talking about the ones that are actually showing up on a regular basis, contributing whatever it is. I think to be an Episcopalian in good standing, you need to go to church 3 times a year and contribute or something, whether it's time, talent, or treasure. So it shouldn't be that hard. It's not real hard to be counted, to stand up and be counted. But I don't think it has anything to do with a particular generation. I don't think any young person's ever loved religion, no matter what period of history you're in. I think there's always great gains in religion and declines. There's periods we've known as great awakenings. It happened in the United States during certain periods of time. There were great awakenings. There's also been these revival periods, whether it was when Billy Graham burst onto the scene back in the 50s. So I'm not worried that, one generation of millennials or whatever it is not going to kill a 2,000-year-old institution. I'm not worried about that. But it definitely shifts and changes. And if I had to pinpoint where the problem came from, at least the current problem we're dealing with. It's the breakdown of the two-parent God-fearing family. So it started with the social revolution of the 60s, of which I think is a cool time. I love the music, I love everything else, but it was there that you can pinpoint where the demise started to happen. It was the liberalization of the church, whatever those things are. That's how it started to decline. Now, I happen to be a person that is in favor of gay marriage. I happen to be a person that doesn't understand why some denominations won't ordain women to the priesthood. So I'm certainly, I'm fiscally conservative, but I'm socially liberal. So I'm not bothered by transgender priests. I know some people are. I think the problem has come into it where a church like the Episcopal Church, the Presbyterian Church, have become so ultra liberal in their thinking that they not only are so ultra liberal, but they condemn anyone that's conservative. And I think they get into politics. And so my book is saying, get out of it. When I go to church on Sunday morning, I don't want to be preached at about gun control. That's not, you know, it's not what people, that's not how you grow a church. So I always say to the priest or to the vestry or the board of directors of your church, or if you're a Presbyterian, the elders, whatever you call them, will this decision grow or shrink this congregation? And I think that there's a lot of issues. I have an ongoing kind of feud with a guy that I love, Bishop Larry Provenzano from the Diocese of Long Island. He was the assistant rector at Christ Church in Westerly. He was one of my childhood priests. I love the guy. But I feel that he refuses to listen to anyone that has a differing political opinion than the left opinion. So you take this whole world we live in today that's very polarized of, you know, I hate or I love Donald Trump or whatever these, you know, these things are. That shouldn't get into the church. A Trump voter and a Hillary voter should, or a Biden voter, should be able to go to church together. And both of them should feel welcome in that church. So if the Episcopal Church is the big tent that it claims to be, it needs to start acting that way. Now, look, in the 50s, we were known as the Republican Party at prayer. That was the joke about our church. Well, now it's like the left-wing, ultra-liberal Green Party at prayer, because all anyone talks about in the national church is sexual orientation, climate issues, and gender, you know, problems, and all. That's all that is talked about. And the average person in the United States just doesn't give a crap what pronoun someone wants to be called. It's not a mainstream thing. And so what you find in that, so I traveled around all the churches, not all the churches, there's thousands, but I went to Florida, I went to Texas, I went to, you know, New Hampshire, to Connecticut, to New York City, to see the politics, to see the churches. I visited the largest Episcopal church in the country, St. Martin's in Houston, 10,000 members, home of the Bush family, you know. I saw Barbara Bush in the pew just before she passed away. They told me the same thing. Tell the national church to shut up. This is what the assistant priest of that church, one of the 20 assistant priests, said. Tell the national church to shut up. Stop condemning people and thinking you're taking some moral high ground when it comes to immigration or any of those things. There's plenty of groups to join to go fight those battles. Go join Amnesty International. But don't use the Episcopal Church as a political action committee to further your views. And I think the final thing I'll say on that topic is it's a lot easier for a priest to go join a rally on the front steps of the State House against something than it is to stand in your own pew and attract the congregation into your own church and preach the word of God. So I find it's just a lot of trend surfing. People are jumping on the latest political issue. Oh my God, a pipeline's going through a native burial site. Let's go have a press conference. It does not grow a church. And so my answer, after all that diatribe I just gave you, is I think the Episcopal Church is losing members because we're too political and we're very, very intolerant of anyone that is not liberal. And if you're a white middle-aged guy like me that's a Republican, you're screwed in the Episcopal Church because they want you gone.
So I think obviously I have zero context to to have a conversation about the ins and outs of what you just said, as far as I have absolutely no context on what the national church is doing. So like, whatever. That's that. I think that what I would say is from that point is that coming from somebody who is a Christian millennial myself, I would say that you're losing on both ends there, because if the because what you're saying is that the conservative sort of right wing side of people that would consider themselves Episcopalian are alienated
Gone.
by this. Right, they're gone or they're alienated. Like you're there, but you're
But I'm
alienated
not
by
right
the
wing.
right. But what I'm saying is like the conservative side of it are alienated by the mainstream of the church, and the younger or more liberal side of it has no idea that the church is liberal. I guarantee you that if you lined up 30-year-olds who consider themselves spiritual or religious, and you ask them if the Episcopal Church is liberal, is as liberal as you just talked about, that is not the perception of a normal everyday person, because we don't think of because the publicity of Christianity is not uh liberalized. So the people that you want to attract, if you're having that conversation, aren't really being attracted, because the stigma of organized religion is not what they're trying to put out. So I feel like you're losing on both ends by being political at all. Does that make sense? Like, I
Yeah,
think I
yeah, and of
think
course,
that to be
people will
engaging,
say that people will say that Christ was very political,
right?
and he may, yeah, well, obviously he was, but I think it was a different type of thing. I just can't juxtapose that to getting involved in, like, I interviewed Father Alberto Cudier for my book, who's a former Roman Catholic priest, wanted to get married, so he joined the Episcopal Church because our priests can get married. And he said that he's too busy preaching about Christ and his teachings to worry about who's in the White House for 4 years.
Okay, yeah,
And I think that's a good thing to. I mean, if look, if you lined up 30 people, only 10 of them would even have heard of the Episcopal Church. So let's just face
yes,
that.
correct.
Unless they know their history and stuff like that. I think so. What our church does is it literally it likes to preach to a mystery guest. We love demographics. We love to say, well, we need millennials. Why? What if a whole generation of people just could give two shits about religion and they just want to be spiritual? Let them, right? There's plenty of people older than them and plenty of people younger than them. Stop going after a demographic. Well, we need more black people. We need more gay people. We need more white people that are, don't have a college degree. I don't know. I'm so sick of these like weirdnesses that people come up with. We need more transgender. We do. How about we just need people? And whoever wants to come to church, I thought that the Episcopal Church welcomes you was on a sign you see every single town you go across this United States. Every town you see, it says the Episcopal Church welcomes you. When did it have to be the Episcopal Church welcomes you? Oh, and by the way, we especially welcome you if you're LGBTQ. Or I have a friend named Todd Lane, who's openly describes himself as a gay guy, who left the Episcopal Church. The church that tries to cater to him actually left the Episcopal Church because he felt like he was a pawn. I remember there was this church where they hung the letters LGBTQ down from the rafters across down the church. And I'm like, this is so weird. And then he said, would you hang the word straight from the rafters? So he actually went and joined some like conservative Catholic the denomination. In other words, who cares if you're gay? Who cares if you're transgender? Who cares if you're black? Who cares? Why is it about race and politics? It's like the church is run by CNN, where everything is like political commentators. And I'm just saying, can we get past that? And they say, well, you're privileged. You can get past that. Well, so what? So what? Okay, so my ancestors were bad people. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. I was not alive in the 16 and 1700s. I wasn't alive in the 1960s during the civil rights struggle. So, like, it's like, get over it. I mean, I can't help you on that. And so when we have to go through our prayer book, and this has happened in the Lutheran Church, I've seen the prayer book in the Lutheran Church, where they go through and say, okay, let's look at all these prayers. Our Father who art in heaven. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we can't say Father. That's offensive. That's sexist. So let's figure out a word for that. I remember a priest I had refused to say in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, because the Father and the Son is sexist. In the name of the Redeemer, Sanctifier, and Creator or something. And I'm like, would you people knock it off? Just stop it. Like, and so we spend all this energy and time arguing about the word he in a prayer book. Go ahead and change the Lord's Prayer and see how many people walk when you take away our Father who art in heaven. I mean, honestly, enough is enough. And so my book is here to say enough of this stuff. We don't need a revised prayer book. We don't need to, we don't need to cater to a mystery guest. We need to take care of the people that are in the pews and the ones that have walked away from the pews. That's the low-hanging fruit. The people that say, yeah, I'm Episcopalian. Get them back into church. And then the rest of my book is not political. It's about having a good website. It's being able to do things that, make sure you actually have a sign out front that says your service times. Make sure your place is clean. Make sure, in other words, take care of the church buildings, take care of the people, reach out into the community, do good things. It doesn't mean you got to go join a rally for climate control or against oil imports or something. Go out and feed the homeless, man. Go out and do the things that Christ said to do. And I think if we stick to things, nobody can argue with feeding the homeless. Can we all start there? Can we start there with like a soup kitchen? Let's start there before we start, anti-Trump or anti-Joe Biden rallies and stuff. Just get out of that, take a deep breath, take a pause, and let's go back to the basics.
So I think that because you and I have had very, very minimal conversations, but we've been friends for quite a while now, and over 5 years actually, which is crazy. And we do not agree politically on things necessarily. We just don't. We've never had an argument with it whatsoever. And one of the reasons why I love you as a town counselor is because like your national political thoughts that are the things that we all concentrate on that I would disagree with or agree with have absolutely nothing to do with what you're doing in your hometown. Nothing whatsoever to do with what you're doing in your hometown. And I feel like that is the message here for you is like, being inclusive is important. It is for sure important. And you should be inclusive to everyone who comes in your door. And make people welcome and create a space for everyone. The issue is when you get into politicizing anything. Like like we said, politicizing on either side will drive people away. So anytime that you're doing that, you're taking away from the meaning of the church, which is to help everybody equally. And if you're trying to help everybody, then I think that I think that the thing that makes the most sense is for every local church to be reaching out to their local community. And if their local community has a disproportionate part of a demographic as you were saying, then that is something that church should address. And if those are the people that are in their community that they can help, you know, and but it's anytime that you do that, you're gonna be divisive, and and you're really not
But
gonna
I
win
but I but tell
anything
you
in this
but
way.
I've seen it done when I went to Father QDA's parish in Plantation, Florida. He has 52 countries represented in his congregation. A lot of people from all the islands, and a lot of them are British, so they're Anglican. So they find like the local Anglican / Episcopal Church. I went to that service. I was in the minority sitting there. I got up and spoke. I presented my message. I got applause, and I sold a ton of books because I don't think that the national church gets it from what the people on the ground are. These people that were from 52 different countries, that wasn't what they're about. It wasn't like, fighting for Spanish as a second language, or it didn't come up. None of that stuff came up. They were just like us, like you, like me, like my next door neighbors. Like they were just going to church on Sunday morning, and there was not a political agenda. And that's where the trouble comes in. I think what's hilarious is that you get people, and so many priests are like this. If you get into that discussion, and I'll do this sometimes just because I want to call them out for the unchristian people they are. And they'll start ranting about Trump, and they just assume that every Episcopalian hates Donald Trump. And I'll say, well, I voted for him. Oh, well, as if I have like a mental illness. And then how can you, and Hitler and all this other stuff. And I'll be like, judge much? And then they'll say, well, we're gonna pray for you. And I'm like, and there's where you're losing your members. I'm not sitting here saying to you, because you voted for whoever you voted for, that I'm going to have to pray for you, and that I can't even look at you because you support a sociopath. That's what they're doing. That's what the Episcopal Church, the Presbyterian Church, the Lutheran Church, that's what their leadership is doing to the people in their pews. Now, let's look at the demographic of the Episcopal Church. 95% old white people with money. Tell me what most old people with money are. They're mostly Republicans. So you've just completely told your whole group of people that they suck and it's time to leave their church. I just think there's a smarter way to do this. And I think it's to leave politics out. So one of the people I interviewed in my book is Tucker Carlson from Fox News. And Tucker is an Episcopalian, one of the most right-wing political talk show hosts. And I'm like, why do you stay in this church that clearly hates you? And he said, well, my father-in-law is a priest. I went to Episcopal schools. I married an Episcopalian. My kids are baptized. And my church doesn't preach that stuff. Like when I go to church on Sunday, nobody's staring at me that like I'm the devil because I have, a pro-Trump agenda or whatever. So I just want to see us as a church get out of politics. And I think so when you mentioned that, the average millennial would have no idea what the politics are of the church, that's what I would love the leaders to know, because they think it's attracting a younger generation. They think that by being anti-Trump or pro this or anti that they're attracting people into the church. They are not. Nobody's coming. It's the way it is. So the way people come to church is you go out into the community and you say, we have this awesome place. We have a great time on Sunday morning. Your friends go to this place. How about you sing? You like to sing? We have this great choir. You like to do this? Why don't you join this group here at the church? You want to play bingo? Come on Monday night, or trivia. That's what we did last night. It's really the basics. We had some altar servers, and for years we had like 20 something altar servers, and it dwindled down to like 5 people a couple of years ago. And I took over the thing, and I just brought it back up to about 30. How? I asked people to join. That's all it is. It's just that It's not political. If we're not going to like get some, someone came up a couple of years ago and said, oh, I'd like to bring Elizabeth Warren to speak at Christ Church. What? Wouldn't bring Elizabeth Warren to speak at Christ Church anymore, and I'd bring Donald Trump to speak at Christ Church. You just alienated half the people in your town by doing something like that that's political. So that's my message in this book is get out of politics, man.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I've been to churches that do the exact opposite. Where I 10 years ago almost. I was at a church, and it was 2008. I was at a church, and there was a guest preacher for the day because the pastor had the day off, and the guest preacher decided to take that time to talk about how Barack Obama was a Muslim and how the country was going to hell.
Right.
And somebody stood up in front of me and said, "Knock it off!" Like stop, and walked out of the church, and it was a huge deal. Um, Politics and religion, from the pulpit is bad.
Yep. Yeah.
Is
And
bad.
so that's so a lot of those, like, what's it, Bob Jones University type thing, where it's more that side, and they hate the liberals. I don't want the Episcopal Church to turn into that, or the Lutherans. They shouldn't be over
No,
there.
like love
They
your
used to be.
neighbor and do and soup kitchens and come join our
Yeah.
choir. Like
Yeah. I mean, and certainly, taking action when it comes to the opioid crisis. I mean, those are things that we're called to do. But I think, I was offended last year or 2 years ago. My diocese had a resolution saying the number of illegal immigrants should be raised by 60,000 or something. I'm like, who cares what the Episcopal Diocese of Rhode Island, with its 15,000 members, care? Do you think anyone in Congress cares how many people we think we should let in the United States? Like, just get over it. And I just, and that's where I am with this thing. And people will call me insensitive. And look, my book isn't religious at all. It's a business. Here's the bottom line. At the current rate of decline, we are extinct in 50 years as a denomination. There'll be nothing left except some nice buildings. Some of them have endowments, so they'll be like museums, or maybe they'll open on Christmas and Easter and with a hired orchestra in there and a hired choir. But that's where it's headed. And there's no chance that it's going to turn around as long as the current lackadaisical leadership is in charge. Nothing against Michael Curry, the presiding bishop. He's a wonderful preacher. He's the guy that preached at the royal wedding, last year with Meghan and Harry before they went south. He riveted. The whole world was in awe of his, and he's an amazing preacher. But the people that he's surrounded by, the check collectors, just are just not out for the best interest of the Episcopal Church. And so my thing is, look, I've been blacklisted by a lot of people in the church because of this book. I was able to get one review in the Living Church, which is probably one of the most prominent publications, because there were some sympathizers that were working there or whatever to the cause. But my point of view is pretty taboo in the Episcopal Church. It's not the mainstream thought, and I get chastised all the time, and they say, it's almost like a pat on the head. Okay, good little Caswell, the last vestiges of the WASP or something, whatever they want to call me. But I say no. I say no. Knock it off. I'm okay with my heritage. I'm proud of my heritage. I'm not apologizing for the past. I'm not, paying reparations for slavery. Look, if my ancestors did something bad to your ancestors, sorry, but it isn't your problem or my problem. And we need to get off that. We need to get off of the apologizing for the past tour, and we need to focus on what can we do now, moving into the future. And I think that's where this book wants to lead us, because let's put it this way. I'm not a priest. I'm not even a deacon. I'm not ordained in any way, but nothing that has come from on high since 1966 has worked. So maybe there's got to be a better way. And I'm going to try to give it to you in this book, which is available on Amazon.
Well, I think I don't fully agree or disagree with everything you just said, which is just what's going to happen because we're just two different people. And I mean that in the sense of I agree with you that the focus should always be on what we can do right now and how we can just help each other and be good to each other, and that's what everything should be about. And I do love your entire message of of unity and of getting the politics out of the church, one way or the other. I think that that's amazing, and take a minute and sell your book. Tell people where they can find it and whatnot.
Sure, barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. It's called The Death and Resurrection of the Episcopal Church. So if you go to Amazon and you just type in Episcopal Caswell Cooke, this will come up. And it's a little over 100 pages, so it's a quick read. It's got some great stories from around the country. So places like St. Martin's in Houston and Trinity Cathedral in Florida. Even went to St. Paul's in Key West, St. Bartholomew's, and St. John the Divine in Manhattan. So we travel around a little bit and tell some stories. Zabriskie Memorial Church is a great example in Newport, Rhode Island, of a church that almost closed and came back and is doing well. Some anecdotes from my own parish and things that I've done as the junior warden of the vestry, or the vice chair of the board, so to speak. And it's a book, I think, that details things like your website, your social media, practical stuff like that. And it does get a little bit into politics in one or two chapters. And I know that's what we focused on tonight, but a lot of the book is practical. Listen, if you're a left-leaning person that's an Episcopalian or a Methodist or a Presbyterian or a Lutheran, it's worth the read just to see that the other side isn't crazy, and to help understand. So, like, I want to understand why you think the way you do. This will help give a voice, because all the books and all the people out there talking for the church are all on one side of the political spectrum. It's just the way it is. And this gives voice to another side of that political spectrum that we hope you'll find.
It is definitely worth the read, and I'd love to talk for just a brief second about all of the practical stuff and all of the wonderful things that you yourself have done for Christ Church and here in Westerly, and the practical solutions are really incredible. And when you break it all down to what you're saying in the book, it's be good to people and be smart about the business of your church. And actually reach out to your real community and your real people that are there and that you can help. So I think that that's wonderful, and I do love that you took it upon yourself to go out and make this book for the people in your community and the people in your larger church community, because you clearly love this, and you have since you were a little boy. I mean, we put up some things of you being an altar boy last week on your show.
Yeah, right.
And so it's very nice, and I've loved watching how passionate you are about things in the meetings that we've had with Christ Church, talking about their social media and website and videos, and the reason why Christ Church right now, one of the main reasons why Christ Church right now is sort of a leader in this online church movement that everyone has been forced into at the moment, is because of you. And it's because of a lot of the tenets that you talk about in this book. So it's well worth the read. And if you're not Episcopalian, this is going to help you with any church that you are looking to help save, because the things in the book are universal.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Thank you, Caswell.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
And I'll see you in like 10 minutes.
For the other show.
Yeah. Who's on your show tonight?
I don't even know.
Borderline genius.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Kaz.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
All right. That was Caswell Cooke. And if you haven't seen enough of him already, I got good news for you. There's more. There's more Caswell. Caswell tonight at 8 o'clock. I always pitch for Caswell tonight, or Ask Caswell, or the Caswell Cooke Show at 8 o'clock. I do it every show. It feels weird that he's actually listening to me do it tonight. But I swear, Caswell, I tell everybody every single night to watch your show. Hi, Karen. Karen Nornberg always says, hi, Ben, ... I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But hi, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, Caswell tonight. It's if you want to be on Caswell tonight, by the way, send him a message. And we're looking for local guests. We're looking for musical guests. and that's all going to be wonderful. And also, because this book was all about the Episcopal Church, and I know how much Caswell really truly loves the Episcopal Church and loves Christchurch Westerly. Check out christchurchwesterly.org. Check out their Facebook page. Check out their YouTube, which has the official seal of Christchurch on it. That's the official YouTube page. And they're doing 9 live streams a week right now. They are absolutely the front runner in getting out there and helping their community. So check that out, christchurchwesterly.org. Have a good night.